everybody. I hope you can all hear me. Welcome to the January 10th Rotary meeting. And sorry I can't see you in person, but I'll look in your little Hollywood square and at least we're able to get together. I was hoping to get through the year without going back to Zoom, but with the health situation as it is, I don't think we had a whole lot of choice. We also didn't have a staff to serve us at the Toledo Club, so here we are. We have a wonderful speaker today. We have Dr. Rekha Chaudhary broadcasting all the way from Cincinnati, so we're really looking forward to that. And she is the daughter of past President Riaz. Next, I would like to invite President-elect Cindy Binkley to give us a reflection, please. Cindy?
Happy New Year, fellow Rotarians and guests. As we start this the first Rotary meeting of 2022, I'd like to have us say goodbye to 2021 and take on 2022 head on. At this time, I'd like to offer this prayer. It's called The Year Ahead from Author Unknown. May God make your year a happy one, not by shielding us from all sorrows and pain, but by strengthening us to bear it as it comes. Not by making our path easy, but by making us sturdy to travel any path. Not by taking hardships from us, but by taking fear from our heart. Not by granting us unbroken sunshine, but keeping our face bright even in the shadows. Not by making our life always pleasant, but by showing us when people and their causes need us most, and by making us anxious to be there to help them. Accept God's love, peace, hope, and joy in this year ahead. Now, if all of you will stand and put your hand over your heart and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Cindy, for the reflection. That was very nice, and the pledge. And thank you all for participating in the pledge. I saw you all standing, kind of. I would like to also thank Raymond and our meeting sponsor for January, and Brian Kennedy. Thanks again, Brian, for all you do for our club and all you have done. Next thing I would like to do is move right on. I don't have too many remarks, but I would like to move right on to Murph. And if you would like to tell us a little bit about how the foundation giving is going.
Am I on?
Yep. You're on.
We had a great turnout. Thank you so much for everyone who gave money for the annual campaign. It's amazing what we have accomplished. We will have published very shortly the results. I can tell you we are very close to meeting our goal. And with something like 99 people pledging at least $250, I'm blown away. So you will see some additional information coming out from me in the near future. But I wanted to thank everyone for just giving to this annual campaign. It's amazing. So thank you, and we'll get some reports very shortly.
Thanks, Murph. That's great news. You're doing a fantastic job, and really appreciate it. And I really appreciate those 99 donors. And I hope we got some others, even if they were less than 250. And hopefully we will get a few more, even if we don't get a match. Next thing I'd like to do, we have great news for our club. Our past president, Tim Ryan, has been elected. I forget exactly the acronym for it, but the district governor next or something like that. And he will be district governor in 2024, 2025. And it's really exciting for our club to have another district governor. So Tim, I would like you, if you would like to give us a few words of wisdom and what your vision.
Well, thanks, Bob. I don't know if I have very many words of wisdom, but I do have a lot of gratitude to this club and the current and past leadership for all of the help and opportunities that they've given me to serve in Rotary. It's a great honor to be a Rotarian and to be given the chance to lead a Rotary district is a huge thing for me. And I just wanted to say how grateful I am to Rotary and to this club in particular and all of my friends. So thank you very much. Back to you, Bob.
Next, I would like to introduce past President Riaz to introduce our guest speaker today, someone who I assume he knows pretty darn well. So Riaz, if you will introduce your daughter, that would be great.
First of all, Rekha is my daughter-in-law, not daughter. And second is my wife Ginny and I were excited. We were excited that she would come the night before and stay with us, but it didn't happen. So we are kind of disappointed, but I'm glad we have her as a speaker. Rekha has been in private practice of hematology and oncology for the past 18 years. She was at the University of Toledo, UTMC, for 7-8 years. And for the past 10 years, she has been at University of Cincinnati. She specializes in, of course, hematology and oncology, and her special interest is brain tumors and melanoma. And she's married to my second son. His name is Chaudhary. He's an orthopedic surgeon in Cincinnati. And they have 3 wonderful children. They live in Indian Hills, and they have 3 children. The oldest, Jay, is a junior in high school, and Sammy is a freshman in high school, and the daughter is in 8th grade, Alicia. So we are really pleased that she could join us today, and her main interest has been for the past few years is wellness and cancer. And she has spoken at multiple meetings. She went to Italy a few years ago, and she was the keynote speaker on this topic. And she just told me this morning that she was invited to American Society of Radiation Oncologists, and she will be a keynote speaker on this topic as well. So I promised her that I could talk about her for a long time, but to save time for her speech, I hereby present my daughter-in-law, Rekha Chaudhary. Rekha?
Thanks, Papa. Thank you. That was really nice introduction. I'm going to share my screen here, so my slides, so just give me a minute. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for having me today. Thanks for that kind introduction. And I'm really sad that I didn't get to see you guys last night as well. So the topic of is preventing cancer with healthy choices, a scientific approach. So how did I get into this integrative oncology field? Well, when I was at University of Toledo, my main specialty was non-small cell lung cancer. And so they weren't really like me. You know, they were mainly older men who had smoked their whole life. And I was doing okay from an anxiety standpoint. As you can imagine, most oncologists have a high anxiety rate because they think that they are going to get the cancers that they're treating. I moved to University of Toledo, University of Cincinnati in 2010, and I started doing glioblastomas. As you all know, glioblastoma is the tumor that John McCain had. It's a very virulent tumor, one of the most malignant tumors we have. And also, glioblastoma has no etiology. There's no known cause of glioblastoma. So when I started doing that, I started to get very nervous. I my husband's like, you got to get out of this field because it's making you crazy. And then I saw a movie called Forks Over Knives. I don't know if anybody's seen that movie, Forks Over Knives. It's on Netflix. And it was so shocking to me that you can make choices in your life to prevent cancer. I've never heard of that. As an oncologist, I was never taught that in medical school. I was never taught that in residency or fellowship. So I was shocked, and I started doing more research in it. And at that point, I was kind of like, well, if I make these changes, then I can be the best oncologist for myself in terms of cancer prevention, as well as for my patients. Before this, I was the type of oncologist that was like, eat whatever you want, do whatever you want, you have cancer anyway. So it really made a huge shift in my practice and in my life. So what is integrative oncology? Integrative oncology is making choices, healthy choices in your life that change your cancer outcomes. Why is there not a field of integrative cardiology? Nobody's ever heard of integrative cardiology. Nobody's ever heard of the integrative care of the diabetic patient. And why is that? That's because the cardiologists and the endocrinologists have done a great marketing job, right? So everybody knows if you run and exercise, your risk of heart disease goes down, right? People know that. Every single person knows that. If you eat right and you eat less sugar, your risk of diabetes progression goes down. But that's not intuitive with oncology. I don't think people out there know if I eat this certain thing, my risk of lung cancer, my risk of breast cancer or prostate cancer goes down, right? That's not intuitive to the general lay population. And it's not intuitive to physicians either. And that's why it makes it something interesting to talk about. And it also makes it something interesting to study, because it's always interesting to study something that you don't intuitively know. Okay, so I hope today to show you why you should incorporate integrative oncology into your life. Not because it'll make you feel better. I mean, a lot of people do this because they tolerate their chemotherapy better, they feel better. But I want to prove to you today that it will lower your cancer risk. You today, in the next 2 weeks, the changes you can make can lower your cancer risk markedly. Okay, that's my goal and objective today. So what are some of the issues? Why haven't you heard about integrative medicine and oncology? Well, there's a lack of funding compared to pharmaceutical funding. I have been trying to get a meditation trial approved for years and have never been able to get the funding for it. There's a non-acceptance and fear from physicians. Most physicians are saying, well, I don't want my patient to just eat carrots and then not get their chemotherapy, right? So they don't accept it and they don't know the data. And the interventions are often subjective. You know, I use this example all the time. For my father-in-law and my husband, golfing is relaxing. For me, golfing is very stressful. So how do you pick an intervention that causes stress relief when it's different for everybody? And what stress is different for everybody. And there's a lack of large standardized studies. In oncology, we love prospective, randomized, double-blinded, placebo-controlled trials. That's what we want to prove to us. So what is that? That's where you take a patient here and randomly assign them to drug A or drug B and follow them over time, and then you see what happens to their cancer. You can imagine how difficult this is to do with diet, for instance. I'm going to randomize half the room today to go home and eat only plants and fruits, and the other half of the room to go home and only eat meat. You can understand the compliance, the amount of money, the amount of time. Where would you get the funding for that? So in integrative oncology, it's very difficult to conduct these randomized, placebo-controlled clinical trials. What do we look at when we look at oncology randomized clinical trials? And this is going to be a very scientific talk, and I apologize for that if you get a little bored, but I think it's important. I think it's important for me not to just say, this is what you need to do. I think you need to see the data. And I was talking about with my husband last night, and I was saying, I think my calling in life is to explain science to a person who maybe doesn't have a science background. So, and explain it in a way that you understand the scientific study. So all the studies I'm going to present today are very scientific. They're published in peer-reviewed journals. I put the journal name at the bottom so you can go look it up if you want. You can always email me with questions. So this is what we call a Kaplan-Meier curve here. And in this Kaplan-Meier curve, we're comparing surgery to chemotherapy, radiation therapy, and palliative care. What we're looking at is the spread between the curves. So there's a great deal of distance between the curves. So in this example, surgery is on top and surgery is the better option, okay? I'm gonna talk about p-values. P-values mean that it happened not by chance. So the intervention happened because of the intervention and not by chance. For a p-value to be statistically significant, there's going to be a quiz, so remember this, it has to be less than 0.05, okay? 0.05. So Steve Martindale is requesting remote control of my screen. Should I approve it or decline it?
Decline it.
Decline that.
Okay. All right. All right. So what I want to do today, instead of talking about large randomized studies, because there really aren't many, I'm going to look at mouse models, okay? We're going to look at data with mice and in the epigenetics and in the microbiome and looking at DNA data, because mice can't fake certain things. You can't fake your pathology. You can't fake these. So these are very proven methods, very diligent methods of looking at this. So that's why I'm going to use a lot of animal model, what we call animal model data today to talk about it. Okay. First, we're going to talk about stress. So does stress cause cancer? We'll never know this. You can't do a study where you randomly allocate someone to a stressful situation and then the other to a non-stressful situation for the reasons I explained before, right? You can't do that. But can we look at stress and cancer progression? We can through animal models. So this is a study where the mice are placed in a container that is a validated model for looking at stress in mice. So when they are in this, if you've ever had rodents, you know they don't like to be in a trapped space. When they're in this trapped space, their levels of epinephrine go up, their stress hormones go up, okay? Then they injected these mice with breast cancer cells into their abdomen. This is the control arm. You can see how much growth of the breast cancer cell is. And this is the daily stressed out mice. So they stressed them out for 21 days for 2 hours every day. And their cancer grew markedly. This experiment has been repeated in different animals and over many, many different experiments. So we know that stress causes cancer progression. Okay, what about exercise? So again, a similar study, half the mice get a wheel and half the mice don't have a wheel. And again, if you've ever had gerbils or hamsters, you know that rodents love their wheel, okay? Injected the mice's belly with melanoma cells this time. And what they found was, as you can see here, if you can see my cursor, the control arm, the mice without the wheel or without the opportunity to exercise had significant growth of the melanoma. The melanoma is all this black cells, okay? The experimental arm, the arm that did have the wheel, hardly had any growth of the melanoma. This is strange. Why did this happen? We think this happens through natural killer cell activity. This is an electron microscope photograph. It's obviously been colored. Breast cancer cells are not yellow in our body. So this is a breast cancer cell, and the natural killer cells, which are the policemen of our body. That's the real scientific name. My patients are always like, is that the real scientific name? Yes, natural killer cells are the policemen of our body. They're going around surveilling the body for bad things, cancer, viruses, bacteria, any kind of invaders. So this is called the kiss of death. These natural killer cells are attacking this breast cancer cell. So what the experimenters did is they created mice that are called NK cell knockout mice. So they did not have any of those natural killer cells. When they repeated the experiment, then it didn't matter if you didn't have the wheel or not. So by proof of principle, the reason and a way exercise helps cancer reduction is through activation of natural killer cells. Now, I don't have the time today because I have limited time to go into this, but this has been shown multiple times in human athletes, measuring their natural killer cell activity. And I want to give you some cutting edge news. This was published January 6, 2022, as you can see this, published online first in JAMA Oncology and in the Association of Daily Sitting Time and Leisure Time Physical Activity with Survival Among U.S. Cancer Survivors. So they took U.S. cancer survivors, about 1,500 U.S. cancer survivors, and looked at patients that sat more than 8 hours a day versus patients that sat less than 4 hours a day. And there was a 5 times survival benefit in patients that sat less than 4 hours a day. Let's sit with that for a minute. 5 times the survival benefit. You know, we do not have a chemotherapy. We do not have a treatment. We do not have anything that gives 5 times the survival benefit. Okay. So exercise, a very powerful prevention of cancer. And I will say you need about 10 to 15 minutes of getting your heart rate up. It doesn't have to be aerobic, but some way daily exercise. Okay. Sleep. The way we're going to talk about sleep, and I'm apologize for moving through this quite quickly, but this is a broad topic and I want to touch all the things you can do in this new year. So we're going to talk about epigenetics. So what is epigenetics? People say to me all the time, well, I have cancer in my family and I have a gene mutation for cancer and nothing I do is going to make a difference, which is not true. We have these things called promoters that align our DNA. And they're like light switches. They turn on and off our genes. And we can make choices to turn on and off these genes, okay? And one of those things is through telomeres. So Dr. Elizabeth Blackburn, for those of you who want to read her book, it's called The Telomere Effect. She won the Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine in 2009. I was fortunate enough to meet her when she presented at University of Cincinnati. She's a wonderful woman and inspiration to all scientists everywhere. Her work is in telomeres. So for those of you who don't know what telomeres are, they're like the caps on our DNA. And I have a shoelace down here because they're like the caps on your shoelaces or the caps on your DNA. The shorter they are, the more wear on your DNA and the higher risk of cancer, heart disease, and death. Okay, the longer they are, the younger you are. So they're literally like the fountain of youth. So she participated in a study with Dean Ornish. 93 patients with low risk prostate cancer were on a wait and watch treatment. Patients were randomized to a control arm and an experimental lifestyle arm. The experimental arm were asked to adopt a plant-based diet, exercise, practice stress management, and attend group support sessions. And what she found, and if you can see here, this is the experimental arm, the lifestyle arm. Their telomeres lengthened, okay, over a 5-year period. The control group, their telomeres shortened as expected. This is very statistically significant. You can see p-value equals 0.004. If you remember, it had to be less than 0.05. If I was in person, I would be quizzing you guys on this, but I'm not. But what does that have to do with sleep? So an interesting study was done at the University of Michigan. They took 250 interns in 55 US hospitals from 2015 to 2016. They found that their intern year shortened their telomere length by 144 base pairs. Remember, these are very young, healthy people. Longer work hours were associated with greater loss. Interestingly enough, and I think this is really funny, that 85 undergrads during that period had a non-significant increase in their telomeres. So being a freshman at University of Michigan is much easier than being an intern at the hospital. But what's interesting is the really loss of the telomere, if you look over here, this blue line, significant loss of telomere length occurred when they worked 75 hours or more and got less than 6 hours of sleep a night. That telomere attrition rate was 6 times greater than the typical attrition rate. So their intern year, they lived like they lived 6 years of their life. So telomeres are very, very important. And sleep is tightly associated with telomere length, as is diet, exercise, and stress. Okay, diet is a talk that could be a seminar for months. I mean, for, a whole weekend, we could do a seminar on diet and cancer. One of the studies that I do want to point out is the European Prospective Investigation of Cancer, the EPIC study. And that's in 11 European countries. It's a study that's 500,000 people. And this is a picture of the 1991 protests of the communist government, which is 500,000 people. And I put this here to show you how much 500,000 people is. It's a huge study. We could never do this in the United States because we don't have the study ways to do it. But the European Union was able to do this study. And one of the main findings from their study was that processed meat is as dangerous as cigarette smoking. And that's because of the preservatives in processed meat and the way it's smoking, or you smoke the meat, or the nitrates in there. So if one thing you can do is you can give up processed meat. But I want to spend a little time, and this is my area of research interest and also clinical interest, talking about the microbiome. So in medicine, we are very, very separated. My husband is a total joint surgeon. He does hip and knee replacement. He will not do a shoulder replacement. So we think of the body, we've always been taught of the body as separate machines. But the body is not separate machines. The body is a diverse microbiome ocean. Okay, so what we do in our body affects something in our gut, affects our brain. Okay, what is the microbiome? The microbiome is the bacterial content of our body. We are going to be specifically talking today about the gut microbiome. So it's the bacteria, fungi, and viruses that are in our gut. Our gut microbiome, we have way, way more microbiome cells than we do body cells. So we have trillions and trillions of microbiome cells in our body. So we could say that we are mostly made up of bacteria, fungi, and virus, and not actual human cells. So this was a very famous study published in Science in 2018, which again, Science is one of the premier scientific journals in the United States. And it took patients with melanoma, and then it took their fecal matter and looked at the diversity of the fecal matter. Diversity, alpha diversity, means that we have all different kinds of bacteria and fungi. So we have brown, yellow, whatever kind, but we have more difference. If you look, the patients that are in this blue arm right here that had more alpha diversity, very, very different kinds, had a significantly increase in their progression-free survival from their cancer. And these asterisks here are those that are statistically significant. Well, then what happened is, so bacterial diversity is everything. We know that. We know that in terms of fighting infection. We know that in terms of fighting cancer. We know that in terms of depression. We know that in terms of ADHD. We know that in terms of autism. We know that in terms of acne on our skin. Bacterial diversity is everything. So in this same study, what they did in a reverse translational manner, they took stool from the patients up here, okay? They fed them to germ-free mice. So they created mice that had no germs of their own. They fed the stool to the mice, because mice will eat anything. And then they injected melanoma into the rump of the mice. They gave them immunotherapy, which is anti-PD-L1 therapy, which is what we give, Keytruda, Opdivo. You might have seen commercials for that. What they found, and I want you to focus on this bar graph right here. If you got stool from a patient that was not responding to therapy, then your tumor grew 2 times the normal size. If you got stool, if the mouse got stool from responder human, then your tumor did not grow at all. This was amazing and shocked the scientific community. Then the NIH went through and did a study where they actually took stool from cancer patients that were responding and gave it to cancer patients that were not responding and were dying from their cancer. And then those patients started responding. So remember, bacterial diversity and your stool is everything. Okay, So how can you make your stool better? What can you do? So we're going to talk, and there's lots of things you can do, but we're going to talk about two very specific things. We're going to talk about fiber and probiotics. Okay. So this is hot off the press. I've been waiting this study for a long time. It was published by my good friend, Jen McQuaid and MD Anderson. So this is Science, published in Science. You can see this is December 24th, 2021. Okay. And why do I have a picture of a lionfish here? And I'm watching my time. I think I have time. Why do I have a picture of a lionfish here? Because probiotics are like the lionfish of the sea, okay? Probiotics are really strong bacteria that have to survive the time from the factory to the Whole Foods, okay? So when they get to the Whole Foods in the refrigerator and you take them, they overrun your microbiome and decrease your alpha diversity significantly. So Jen McQuaid and her group performed this study where they gave fecal transplant from a human to, again, germ-free mice. They gave them probiotics, they gave them melanoma, and they gave them immunotherapy. And as you can see here, all the probiotic arm had significant growth in tumor size. The purple, dark purple arm at the bottom had hardly any growth, and that was the control arm, excuse me. And as you can see the asterisks here, that means that it was statistically significant. Okay, so probiotics bad. What can we do to increase our coral reef? What can we do to increase our gut microbiome that's sitting in our gut every day? Well, the answer is fiber. Okay, so again, McQuaid et al. And Gopalakrishnan and Wargo did this study where they took tumor injection in the mice, gave them anti-PD-1 therapy, and also gave them a high fiber versus a low fiber diet. You can see again, the dark green line. The only ones that did not have tumor growth was the high fiber diet with the anti-PD-1 therapy. Again, fiber is good because it increases our bacterial diversity, and probiotics bad. Well, you're like, well, that's in mice. What about humans? So they did look at it in humans in a retrospective manner. So if we just focus on this first graph up here, we look and see that sufficient dietary fiber intake had a significant overall survival benefit. About 15% survived longer at 5 years than insufficient fiber intake. P-value less than 0.05. But how can we make that p-value more significant? What if we do the patients that had sufficient fiber and no probiotics? So this red line right here, sufficient fiber, no probiotics, significantly, statistically, very, very significant in terms of cancer relapse. Okay, what is sufficient fiber? Greater than 20 grams of fiber a day. Okay, the World Health Organization recommends that humans get 30 grams of fiber a day. The average American gets 15 grams of fiber a day. And so fiber is good, plant-based fiber is good. You can see examples of plant-based fiber: broccoli, nuts, lots of nuts, tomatoes, vegetables, whole grains. Okay, probiotics, antibiotics, bad. Okay, well, you're like, I don't have cancer and I just want to lose weight. So this is an interesting study done in identical twins. So these are identical twins, and they took the thin twin and the obese twin, and they gave it to, again, germ-free, genetically identical mice. And as you can see here, a picture is worth 1,000 words. This is the mice that was fed with stool from the obese twin, and this is the thin twin. This has been repeated with diabetes. This has been repeated with autism. This has been repeated with depression. This experiment, but it's much, much more marked when you can see a picture. Okay, so my prescription for you guys is to try a completely whole food, high fiber, greater than 20 grams plant-based diet for a month. Okay, so what I do to my patients, I say, go home and get MapMyFitness or MyFitnessPal on your phone, and see how much fiber you eat. And they all say to me, I eat lots of fiber. I eat lots of fiber. I know I eat lots of fiber, Dr. Chaudhary. And they go home and they're like, I only had 15 grams. I'm so embarrassed. How can I not? I thought I was eating lots of fiber. So high fiber, I'm a completely plant-based person, and I struggle to get greater than 20 grams of fiber in my diet. So what is a high fiber, whole food, plant-based diet? It's everything that you're seeing here. It's things that look like when they came out of the ground. So nuts, seeds, fresh vegetables, fresh fruit, whole grains like steel cut oats, not the kind of oats you get in the packet and you warm up in the microwave, the steel cut oats, brown rice, those kind of things. Quinoa, okay? So this is the biggest question I get from every single person listening to this talk. If I'm plant-based, where do I get my proteins if I'm only eating plants? So the World Health Organization recommends that the average American gets 40 grams of protein a day. This is if you're not breastfeeding, if you didn't just have surgery, and you're not pregnant. Okay, so I think most of us in the room are in that nature. Non-vegetarians, this was done in Loma Linda, California, on the Seventh-day Adventists. Non-vegetarians get about 80 grams of protein a day. Even the strictest of vegetarians get about 70 grams of protein a day. We are not a protein deficient culture. The only person that's protein deficient in this culture is the patient who's an alcoholic and in the street and is drinking all his calories. We are a profoundly fiber deficient culture. Okay. So I'm going to leave you. This is my final study. I hope you're not too bored yet. I'm going to leave you with a study about optimism. Many people have taken the MMPI, which is the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Index. So they ran this study in Minnesota, and they took 10,000 people, took the MMPI, and they divided them into optimists and pessimists. 18 years later, 534 of those patients developed lung cancer. And they divided them and looked at their survival. So I think it's interesting that they called it a non-pessimist was the optimist. But so the optimist line is this dark line, and the dotted dash line is the pessimist line. If you're an optimist, it improves your survival by 6 months. Look at the p-value, 0.01, okay? Carboplatin Alimta improves your median survival by 3.4 months versus placebo, okay? The cost of that is $17,764. The last time I checked it and priced it, Optimism is free, okay? So what I want to ask of you guys, I got to meet Oprah Winfrey a few years ago, and what her talk was on is the opposite of love is not hate, but the opposite of love is fear. So you remember when I started out this talk, I told you that I was very fearful. I was always scared of getting cancer. I mean, I had a lot of patience. I had a lot of anxiety about my family members, my husband, my kids. But I think if you're going to go on this journey with me, and it is a journey, I'm still dealing with it, I'm still struggling with it. If you're going to go on this wellness journey, then choose to do it with love. Choose to do it with like living a spa-like lifestyle, okay? Choose things that make the healthiest choices today for you today, and not because you're in fear of having cancer. So, and finally, I'll leave you with high fiber, plant-based diet, manage stress, exercise daily, sleep 8 hours a night. And this is a picture of my father-in-law, my husband, and my 2 oldest sons. And they got this black grouper, and they were very happy and not stressed out at all, although I would have been very stressed out fishing with them all day. So just another point to prove that stress cannot be generalized with humans. And that's it. Thank you very much. I think I did good on time. I'm 3 minutes early.
Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Chaudhary. That was really a great presentation. I've got kind of a science and an engineering biology background, so it's fascinating to hear all this. And the probiotics kind of surprised me. I had the impression that probiotics were always a good thing.
I know. And that's why it makes it interesting, right, to study, because where the marketing says that probiotics are wonderful and everything. But then when we study it in mice in a very controlled situation, they're awful for at least for cancer. I'm not a cardiologist. I'm not a gastroenterologist. I don't know what they do for your gut, but it's for cancer prevention, specifically melanoma, very, very important. And I recommend all my patients. The head of integrative medicine at MD Anderson did a nice op-ed in the New York Times. He has metastatic melanoma himself, and he was on probiotics, and he was shocked being on the probiotics how much his alpha diversity went down.
What about, I mean, I've seen a lot of things about stool injections from family members and things on certain things. Is that something that we're looking at doing?
Yeah. So, I mean, we're doing that. NCI, National Cancer Institute, is doing that. Fecal transplants are becoming very common. We're even doing them in the bone marrow transplant situation to give people better stool. But you don't have to do that. You know, I mean, fecal transplants are not exactly the most comfortable thing to do. You can change your diet. And I didn't show this, again, in the interest of time. There was a study done out of Pittsburgh where he took South Africans and he took African Americans in Pittsburgh, and he switched their diet. So he changed high fiber, low fat versus high fat, low fiber. And within 2 weeks, he did a colonoscopy on them in the beginning and a colonoscopy after 2 weeks. They had profoundly changed their colon mucosa. So just within 2 weeks, you can change your diet profoundly.
I don't think I'd want 2 colonoscopies in 2 weeks.
I don't know how he got that approved by the Institutional Review Board. I really don't. I can't even get a meditation study approved, but he got it approved.
I don't want to hoard all the questions. Matt, do you have some other people that have some questions?
Yes, if you have questions, please go ahead and from the reactions screen menu option, you can raise your hand and I will come to you in order and call on you. I believe Jim Slatterly had a question. Give me one moment to find Jim.
Red wine. Yeah.
Yes.
So his question is red wine. You know, it's plant-based. I mean, it is a plant-based. I know, I mean, I think my father-in-law can probably speak more to this in terms of cardiovascular data. The oncology data doesn't pan out. A greater than 1 glass of wine a day is bad for breast cancer. And we lump breast cancer and prostate cancer together. So breast cancer and prostate cancer, bad. Am I going to tell you to stop drinking wine? No, because then you would never have me back or never believe everything I said. But I really think that we need to really take into consideration how much wine we're drinking, because it's been, again, a nice marketing for cardiovascular risk, but it hasn't panned out in the oncology data.
Looks like Riaz has a question.
Papa. I can't hear him.
We'll get him unmuted. There you go.
Okay. First of all, Rekha, was a great talk. I really enjoyed it. My question is that probiotic is some amount is allowed or not at all? What are the common things we eat for probiotics? Yogurt and
yeah, no. So probiotics are pills. Okay, they're the things you get at. You guys don't have. You have Churchill's, right? You don't have Whole Foods. So
Yeah.
you get Churchill's. You know, it's the stuff you get in the freezer at Churchill's or the refrigerator. Prebiotics are things that we eat to feed the bacteria. So yogurt, although it's technically a probiotic, it's fine because it's within the fungi or within the yogurt. But what we're talking about when we're having prebiotics, those are all fine, right? Anything you use to feed the bacteria, any food source is fine. When we're talking about probiotics, we're talking about the pills that you get in the refrigerator section at Churchill's or pharmacies.
all right, sounds good. But anyway, alcohol is a separate topic. You know, we don't have the time to discuss that.
and you know, I'm not an expert on the cardiovascular.
You're
And I don't
supposed
want
to have 14. If you have more than 14 drinks per week, it can be beer or a glass of wine that you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So you have to keep it less than 14.
Yeah. And it depends on what you're trying
Monday,
to
you
get.
start a count on Monday, and if you're 7 and 8, then you stop after that. Wait for next Monday. All right. Thank you very much. It was a great talk, Rekha.
Thanks.
Any other questions out there? You see any, Matt?
I do not see any at this time.
Okay. Well, again, I thought that was really fantastic. That was very interesting. A lot of things to think about. I know we've had a plant-based challenge here, a 15-day
Yeah.
that some of us did. So I guess I'll have to renew that pledge.
Well, and you know what? I'm telling people more, my patients, I'm telling them to not worry about the plant-based. They get so hooked on the plant-based part, right? But more importantly is the whole food, high fiber. So if you're going to go plant-based and you're going to eat Oreos, by the way, Oreos are plant-based. They have no dairy, no, you know what I mean? If you're going to go plant-based and you're going to eat Oreos, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about broccoli, nuts, seeds, not, potato chips, right? We're talking about, so focus more on the high fiber whole foods. So, it's interesting, an apple, we think of an apple as being high fiber, but it only has like 3 to 5 grams of fiber, right? So kind of looking what you can get your fiber in. And I put 2 things in the comments. One book that I read this year that I thought is one of the best books I've ever read is Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, I think his name is. I'm good, like he's the head of sleep at Berkeley and was a professor at Harvard. And it talks about why we sleep, because sleep doesn't make sense in terms of an evolutionary standpoint, right? You're not eating, you're not drinking, you're not procreating. So why we sleep, and it's very interesting. He says 8 hours a day, no bones about it, or heart disease, cancer risk goes up. And then the other one is Game Changers, which is a movie on Netflix, which is a wonderful movie looking at athletes, plant-based athletes. For instance, the Titans, who are doing very well, football team is all mainly plant-based. And so is, as you know, Tom Brady, and as you know, all the strongest men of the world. And it's produced by Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jackie Chan, who are also plant-based. So
a great talk. I'm so pleased that you're in this field, and thank you for sharing today. I was just wondering a little bit about the exercise. We hear so much on that, whether walking 3 miles a day. I mean, what kind of research is saying, what is sort of the minimal amount and what is the maximum amount?
So there was a large study done in lymphoma patients, okay? And so again, I'm only speaking from the oncology standpoint. Done in lymphoma patients where they randomized them to 5 days of exercise for 15 to 30 minutes a week, okay? And the patients, they put them into, different categories. Even the patients who couldn't do, 3 days of exercise for 15 minutes a week, even the patients who couldn't do the 3 days, they couldn't do the 3 days, they couldn't do the 15 minutes, they had as much benefit as the patients who did the whole exercise challenge. The only people that did not benefit in terms of cancer benefit were the patients that didn't exercise at all.
And what constituted exercise? I mean,
Walking.
So you could get your heart rate from 60 to 70 or 75, right, and that's sufficient.
Yeah, just walking. I mean, they quantified it in METs. So they quantified it in like 30 minutes of walking a day. So we know that with glioblastoma too. The study came out of Ohio State that it's the only thing, we do not have anything for recurrent glioblastoma. The only thing that is shown to improve progression-free survival with glioblastoma is exercising 5 times a week, more than 30 minutes. Okay, so that's for glioblastoma. I mean, I'm not saying to get your natural killer cells activated, I would recommend 15 minutes every day, every single day. This is not weight loss. This is not cardiovascular health. I'm not speaking to that. I'm just talking about getting those natural killer cells activated. And again, I'm not an infectious disease doctor, but natural killer cells are also involved in COVID prevention and bacterial infections as well.
All right. Thanks again, Rekha. In appreciation, we are going to send you eventually, or maybe we'll give it to Riaz to get to you, but a book called Historical Tales of Toledo.
Awesome.
And it's by a past president of Toledo Rotary. And It's pretty interesting, especially since you've lived here.
Yeah.
And we'll also make a donation to the Polio Plus Fund in your name. So,
Awesome. Thank you. What a great gift.
with that, I would like to invite past President Chuck Mann to give us a little chuckle.
From a producer whose name is Bad Lip Readers, and it's self-explanatory. Just roll it, please, Professor.
I saw your mole. You give me a complex, man. You gotta eat the breakfast. We eat breakfast, then lunch. I have flaps. I just forgot to breathe. Holla, we gon' ball.
Why are you, always angry?
Once there was this prince, he came from like Syria, okay? And he lived with some peaceful monkeys outside his aunt's boyfriend's cabin and had an old sheepdog named Paco Sinbad. I could just throw a rock and then aim it at your neck so you'd get 2 stitches. Better get down, gonna dance, good friend. Chicka chick, jabba jabba. All I know is I know this is the bad guy and I know this is a good one. Ducky, ducky, turkey, turkey, duck, duck, duck. Move. That guy bumped me. So wait, you're saying if you don't like her, then you buy a girl a second-hand handbag? I think my face is happier, Fuzzy.
I wonder, how much do I offend you?
Well, friends of mine know that I don't like you.
Oh, that's nice.
Dude, pick up that penny. I wasn't loved as a baby. I like Horace, the little mystery pig. He's got round poops.
Fun town!
Come on, hug Daddy. I love my gopher. Hey, simmer down, yeah? Yeah.
I thought about what you said, man. I got my Legos and I'll bring them, and then we can play all day.
Man, who took my skin cologne? I like strong pickles, but not the funk house kind, all right? I'll toss them out.
That girl! She's so pretty! You guys don't have a problem with this?
I like this hat. Yeah, I once got a rake, and I killed a snowman.
Villain.
You made a recipe, and then you invented dirt lumps. Where's my furry friend? Oh, hey. I'm the best driver. I back up all the time, and it takes great effort to not swerve, and oh no! Hey, spirits. Y'all look creepy.
You know that man that had the cocaine? Turns out he's a coke dealer.
What? Give me a tiny boat, and I'll sing all day.
Jellyface!
Hey, wait, not ready. Gonna die. What the hell? Brains can get messy. The buffalone. Wait, I need to tell you something. Billy! Red rum. Hey, look, I'm hot. Oh, there's Fred. Oh, and Phil. What'd I do? Oh, yeah. Who am I seeing? Vivian. Oh, she just saw me. Go. Disco. And the beat don't die in Bingo Town. You love Funyuns. Yeah, dude. I know you was eating them before every game. Didn't you? Yeah. Gross.
Ding dong!
Did I mention that I never planned to serve you rodent meat?
Yeah, well, I really wish you just never did do it.
Ooh. Broken. Lady. Hey, lady.
Hot soup. Where they got it?
I'm not okay. I'm gonna crack. Yeah. There's that guy that has the brown horse head weird mask. You don't like it? No, man, it's too much. I can't take it. It's scary.
Meow.
More sticks I will eat.
I'm not a plant.
Oh, you're marvelous. Hot dog, I love you. Man, get my Funyuns ready.
No more Funyuns.
Come on, bring me that treat.
No,
Because they
no.
just make a hum in my tongue. And you should see, we cut a mouse, and then we kept it. I could have cooked him, but no, we can't crush it. So we got him a mouse cage.
Thank you, Chuck. That was interesting. I think I saw a few of those games. And to wrap it up, just to remind you all, next week is Martin Luther King Day, and we will not have a meeting. After this meeting, we'll be counting the votes for directors and vice president. So Jackie will get those results out. Our next meeting will be January 24th, and our guest speaker will be fellow Rotarian, Rick Russell of Hospice of Northwest Ohio. And To answer the quiz, P is less than 0.05, and natural killer cells. That's what we have to remember. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you, Rekha.